All right, we're live. Welcome to the show. It's a
Yeah,
Dynasty
yeah.
show on Tuesdays. We got your boy Flojo in the house. What up, Flojo?
What up, dude?
Yeah, we've got a couple different things to talk about today. We'll be talking about Jonathan Taylor, Deebo, Tlaw. We'll talk that Dolphins Steelers trade. We'll talk Waller. I think I'm missing somebody, but a
Bo
few different guys.
Nix.
Bo Nix, yeah, we'll talk about Bo Nix as well. We'll talk about Dynasty. We'll talk about the value. We'll talk about buying, selling, whatever it is we're doing or thinking with some of these guys. But I guess we'll just jump right in on the Darren Waller situation getting signed. I've already seen a bunch of people go ahead and pick him up. So what are you thinking about Waller?
Well, pre-show discussed who I had as my dynasty tight end because that's a position I love to punt at, punt with, punt to. Uh, I hate going tight end early, man. I know you got your McBrides and your Bowers, and a lot of these are tight end premium leagues, and it kind of makes sense. I get that part, but I just don't love the build, and I don't love the way my roster looks. So I am one of those dudes who is looking to drop some fab tonight on the Walrus in hopes to replace Arthur Smith's second wife, who he remarried, Johnu Smith's now stepson, Pat Fryermuth. A little long-winded there, but Pat Fryermuth, I thought was going to be money, bro. A-Rod loves his tight ends. I thought we were sliding in, punting on the position, and now we are not feeling great about it, bro.
No, not at all. So as far as Waller, I mean, I'm not dropping anything on him, but I'll take him for free. I mean, he hasn't been good since 2020, really. So I don't know. Could he bust out and turning things around? Yeah, sure, but those chances are probably low. Um, so I'm not
He
willing to
could.
really drop anything on him. But like I said, I'll take him for free. But don't I'm not. I wouldn't get your hopes up really.
I mean, he about to drop some flows, maybe, but I think maybe that's why he came out of retirement. Is his bars weren't hitting as well as maybe he was hoping. So,
No, no. Kev, what up, Kev? What's good, Albert? Albert in the house. I swear we have Michael Mayer to the Dolphins. Must be in my wet dreams. Yeah, I mean that would have been nice. I mean, Johnu going over. I mean, I don't like either Johnu or Fryermuth really now in the situation. I don't know, 12 to 18 really? I don't know. Did they crack top 10 like if both of them are out there?
I'm curious to see like people chasing that Johnu from last year, bro, and he's going back to Arthur Smith. The guy had maybe 3 games in that offense, right? He's super athletic, like everything we hope Johnu to be. His whole career came to fruition last year, utilized perfectly in that Miami Dolphins offense, needing Tua to get the ball out of his hands quick. And now he's going back to Arthur Smith, and I don't even know if either of them cracked the top 15, bro.
No, I'm not really messing with it. I mean, there's not much to really talk about Waller. I mean, does anybody really think he just steps right in and becomes like Jonnu Smith of last year? I don't think so.
Hey, bro, we can all hope and pray. When your Pat Fryermuth dreams have been shot down, there's only one free person on the waiver wire that can save you. I'm lighting a candle tonight, bro, and I might DM you and you can respond back disappointed with how much fab I dropped on Darren Waller.
Listen, if you could pick him up and then trade him for a third, I'm for it. I'll trade him for a third easily. Whoever wants him, here you go.
Take him.
Give me that little piece.
A little piece. I was trying to shop. I was trying to get Jay Ferg. Um, okay, so the John news drops, and I got Pat. I think I might have Pat in two, bro. How depressing is that? So now I'm hitting the market. I'm sending out some terrible offers. All of these are, I think, 1.5 tight end premium. So I'm targeting Kittle. I'm targeting Ferguson. I'm even sending out some love for Laporta, but everyone wants a second, and I'm like, I don't want to pay a second for Jake Ferguson. I don't want to pay a second. I mean, I probably pay a second for Kittle, and I probably pay a second for um, for Laporta.
Or
But like, how much further would you go if you have Pat Fryermuth as your dynasty tight end, and now you're in obviously a bind?
I mean, you've got to like Ferguson. I mean, you've got to give up at least a second. Nobody's really going to take less than that. I'm okay with getting a second. Can you get something back in return instead of just a straight up second? Can you get a third back? Can you get a bum running back? Just something that you can possibly use or can possibly have some value. Or like if you feel like you're paying too much, then maybe you go pay a little more for TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, like you talked about. I'm good with going to get Laporta. He's way cheaper than, what he used to be. So, I'm all for that.
I just like I hate being in this position, and now everyone looks at your roster and they're like, "Oh, Pat Fryermuth, okay," and they know you're in a tight spot, so they make you pay, bro, and they make you feel the burn. And you know what? If I was the GM on the other side, I'd be doing exactly the same thing. So I ain't
Right,
mad at
right.
it.
But what about a Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, something like cheap people don't like because of last year, that maybe you can get your hands on?
I mean, you know what's funny, bro? Like, do you have you ever traded or attempted to trade for Kyle Pitts first? And second, like the dude that has Kyle Pitts, that guy's holding on to hope and he values him probably a second plus, you know? So Pitts is a tricky
Depends.
situation. I like the Mark Andrews call though.
It depends. Yeah, some people are still holding hope, and some people have just given up at this point, and they'll just take anything. So, depending on what they need and what you might have, you could entice them to give up one of these guys, especially if they're not their starters.
I just hate giving up any valuable pieces for a tight end, bro. But you know, maybe one day we'll get rid
I
of
feel you.
the tight end position and we'll just make everything, not a super flex, but a
I'm in
flex to
I'm
where
in
you
two
can.
leagues where there's just an extra flex. You don't have to play a tight end, but it is a full point like tight end premium, so you get 2 points for a
Uh,
reception, but you don't
uh,
have to play a tight end. You could just, play your flexes in there.
I hate tight ends, bro.
What if you go, all right, what if we go even uglier than that? Let's talk about it. We might as well, right? What if you go to Goddard? What if you go to my favorite is Hunter Henry or Gesicki, like cheap options that are going to give you decent points.
Well, I love how this always turns into let's analyze Flo's rosters and all his pain points and trades. By the way, I locked down your boy Mbuka. I know you're proud of me, Igbuka. I know you're proud of me. I still don't love it having him in my starting lineup, but I love seeing the buzz. I love seeing everyone. They're sharps dudes that win these big ass like experts fantasy leagues that are reaching on him early, and paying a premium to get this dude on his team because they think he's going to produce year one. So I appreciate that. Um, I can't ever roster Dallas Goddard, so we can start there. We can X him off the
All
list.
right.
I just, the shaggy with the bald spot and no swag and just like I just can't do it. Right. I need a little more than that. Um, you what's the other two you mentioned? Oh, okay. Okay, so
Uh,
Hunter Henry and Gesicki, right? Tell
mhm.
me if so. This is my thing, bro. Is Chig Okonkwo a super sleeper with everyone kind of believing in Cam Ward, with Calvin Ridley being the real only other option in Tennessee? Like if Cam Ward is him and Chig has flash, bro, it's not like this dude hasn't balled out in games before, but is him being the number two option? Like, am I okay with just running him out instead of forcing myself to buy a tight end who I think is a little bit better, especially when you're bringing up names like Hunter Henry and Mike the Gritty Gesicki?
I mean, he could, but I don't know if I'm necessarily counting on it. He could be that cheap free guy that winds up turning into a top 10 to 15 guy. Like he could very well do that, but if I can get my hands on a Gesicki or a Henry, I'd feel just way more comfortable rolling that out there every week. Knowing that they're in hopefully better offenses, Gesicki especially. But yeah, I mean, I would rather the other two guys, but he's got something there. I mean, he's got opportunity, right? He's there's not many other weapons there. So is there opportunity? Yeah, but he hasn't done it really before, so it's hard to really bank on that.
I mean, look, like Gesicki scarred me last year, bro. I think he was in a slam dunk. I don't know if T was out. I don't know what was happening with Jamar Chase. I believe it was either a Thursday or a
Mm.
Monday game. Like everyone's like, Gesicki's the top 5 play this week. And my man went like, you know, 6 for 41. And I was like, I hate you, Mike Gesicki.
I remember that, but he still finished as a top 15 tight end last year. I mean, he didn't really have a ton of touchdowns, but 65 for 665. I mean, he was decent. But the thing is, you can't pick and choose the weeks because you know it's hard to do that. You just got to play him every week and live with it.
That seems like your motto, bro. That was Rashad Bateman last
Right.
week. Now Mike
That's
Gesicki
it.
this week. I like tinkering, boy. I'll be like, oh, I seen this and this matchup I read on this with this breakdown of this corner, like, and then it's like 2 for 14. You're like, it's some
Yeah, I mean,
bullshit.
listen, sometimes that works too, but sometimes you just got to just roll with it. Just play the points game, play the war, the wins above replacement, and you have to just go out there and play him every week. That's the only way. Sometimes it's too hard. But all right, let's get into this Dolphins and Steelers trade, right? Um you got Jonnu going over, and so that leaves some vacated targets. And we talked about this briefly, I think a couple weeks ago when we briefly had talked about Achan. Do those go just straight to Achan, or do they funnel back into the offense we were used to seeing with Tyreek Hill and Waddle? What do you feel about the Jonnu trade? Does it change anything for you as far as Achan?
I mean, we talked about my Achan trade and me overpaying. I think it was 2 weeks ago. So hey, I'm leaning on my boy Achan. I think we looked what first in receptions, first in receiving yards last year, 78 receptions, right? I think like automatically, bro, yes. Like let's call Jonu's targets for what? Maybe 90, 110, like somewhere in that range. Maybe a little bit less. I don't know when he came on. Um, but I will tell you what I am seeing, and I'm seeing people suddenly believe, you know, revert back to believing in Waddle, bro. And I shared how I felt about Waddle last week, and I've completely sold all shares. Look, at this point, anything's possible, right? You mentioned Reek, like, could Reek return back to old? Absolutely. Right? Could we see, him being a possible league winning player in the late third, fourth round, wherever he's going right now, and just be a 1,700-yard guy again? I don't know if he'll reach that ceiling, but it feels like it's up in the air. But if I had to bet, and what is the safest, player we think those targets are going to funnel back to, it's Achan, because Achan, you know, operates in that same space on the field as Janu did. And I think ultimately, bro, like if the Vegas odds were out and who would get the most targets out of those 3 players on that offense, Achan's at like, minus 50, bro. Like I really think, those vacated targets will go to him.
I
Or
mean,
majority at
I don't
least.
nec- I don't necessarily disagree. I just look at more of what's the value side? Like people are going crazy now. Achan's going to get this. Achan's going to do that, and that's great if everything rolls correctly for him, and all the stars align. Like yes, he is going to be, get all of those, get those targets and get that extra work. But he's already ranked RB6, right, on Keep Trade Cut. You could argue definitely 5. Like you could argue over Hampton. So you got Bijan, Gibbs, Genti, like Saquon, and then it's like Achan is right there, right? How much more up are we going to get him? Is this the chance? Like, and I always talk about just cashing out on that crazy value. You can pick up another RB1 and get, a first round pick or some sort of asset or player on top of it. Like, is now the time to capitalize now with this news and with this happening? Or are we paying through the roof and just buying HN and buying HN? And most people are wanting to buy HN. And I'm always on that opposite spectrum of let me just, get the value out of him. And I don't disagree. Like I don't not like HN. I don't think he's not going to do well. I just like playing the game. I like playing the strategy portion of it.
I think it depends. I mean, if you're in my situation and you paid up and you bought, and I gave up a first and I gave up Chuba, and we went over that last week or two
Hmm.
weeks ago, I don't think I'm in a position, right? Because what am I going to do? I'm essentially going to equal out what I just paid for him. But I do think if you
In that
own
situation, yeah.
Achan and you didn't actually pay for him, right? I think that is an avenue to explore, right? Can I get a Chase Brown on one and maybe something else, right? Can I get, like you said, that RB1 type player? I would want, a player above a Chuba, right? I know Chuba kind of aligns and he fits into what we're necessarily considering an RB1, but I would like a little bit more of an explosive player. Like, can I go Bucky in a two, right? Can I do something along those lines? You know, Bucky plus a player. Like, I would really consider that because I love Bucky and I think, you know, he's not A-Chan, you know what I'm saying? But he is a player like a Chase Brown and Bucky. Like, those are my two, you know, guys that I would actively look to target in a dynasty league. So, you know, always listen to Stevie B, bro. He knows the deal. He knows when to shop. You know, your process, you know, stock market shark, bro. You're buying penny stocks and you're selling to poor guys in Minnesota, bro, and they're losing their house because they're getting hustled by you. So, you know, it's it's always a good possibility to do that.
I like the idea of Bucky in it too. So last week we had talked about selling Saquon, and a couple people did not like that. And again, it's not about the production really. It's just more about taking advantage. If you can sell, Saquon or Achan, right, and get a Bucky Irving, Jonathan Taylor, Brees Hall, like Kyron Williams, Chase Brown, even if you could get a first on top of it, even if you got to add a little something to it, like what you can do with that pick during the season. You just talked about Bucky Irvin in a second. Everybody's like, oh, you can't, now you're taking a chance on a player, in that second round. Like, no, you don't have to make the pick. You can't always relate the pick to, I've got to now hit on a rookie. Like, no, now you have a second round pick that you can play with during the season. So that when injuries happen or you get down to the nitty gritty in the season, now you can spend that second round pick on a Mike Evans and go win your league, make that run into the playoffs and in the playoffs, right? And that's just an example, but you can buy a Devontae Adams, right? Some of these older players during the season when they're on teams that are not doing well are going to want to sell. And when you have that ammunition to buy players during the season, like that just gives you a better chance to win. Like it's not just about the points, but what can you do with the value that you can extract with the assets that you can gain, and what can you do going forward? If you can get a first round pick, let's say Brees Hall in a first, you sell Saquon or Achan, you could get Brees Hall in a first, let's just say, for instance. Now, what can you do with that first? Can you add that on top of maybe your first or something else that you do have? Can you go out and buy a stud wide receiver now? Like you have so many options, that you can do. And again, it's not about hating the player. I don't hate them. I just want to take advantage of what people think and get assets so that I can build a team the way that I want to.
I mean, that's beautiful, dog. I think, you know, one of your biggest strengths, right, is exactly what that mentality is, right? You analyze and you value pieces specifically for what they are in that moment, right? I think that that mentality that you just explained, like, well, now I got to hit on the second or else it's a bust on a trade. But instead of going there, right, like that is an additional piece I can use during the season and go buy it. Like you said, a Mike Evans, Demonte Adams, like an aging Derrick Henry, an aging player that's going to put you over the hump, right, and essentially achieve what we're all trying to do, bro. And that's when a chip and be able to flex on all the homies. But that is orchestrated, right, by a situation like this to where you're not stuck in. Well, it's just a dart throw in the second, bro. Like, what am I really going to get? I would much rather hold on to Achan, but ultimately, you know, seeing the big picture and watching that play out. And if you were to do that, and let's just say everything aligned perfectly and you ended up winning, you better come back and DM Stevie, bro, for this idea. So
You just never know, what's going to happen, especially during the season. I mean, how many times is your starting lineup the first game of the season, your starting lineup in the championship? Like, the
never.
things move around, people get hurt, things happen, and you want to have ammunition to go out and fix your team when you need to. When your Derrick Henry goes down, oh fuck, what am I going to do now? I've got no picks to use because I spent it all on, buying Devon Achan, right?
Yeah. That's cold,
But
yo.
just an example, like because things do go wrong, and if things go wrong, you have to be able to recoup or be able to fill that spot, right? Especially if you don't have the depth to. So if you've got ammunition, a lot of times in dynasty leagues, the teams with the most ammunition are the ones making it to the next rounds of the playoffs, making it to the ship because they're able to go buy certain players, when their guys get hurt and keep on rolling instead of an injury killing you and ending your season. You can still, move forward. So
I will add this and I will caution all of our dynasty degens, right? Acquiring assets is one thing, right? Generally, those teams, you don't want to be stuck, bro. You don't want to draft rookies, trade for all these picks, have all these assets, but never be able to turn the corner, right? Because I see that time and time again where you have a team, this is my year, this is my year, and they can never build a competitive team because all they do is hoard assets. They miss on picks. They don't combine them with other players to tier up. They don't know how to operate holding this wealth of assets, and that is also a talent. So don't be so caught up in like I got four first 2 seconds when my team is absolutely trash, but next year's my year, right? Don't fall in so deep or get caught up in that, you know, gathering assets part, bro, to where you neglect your team to the point to where you're just trash and you'll never compete because you're going to be stuck in a vicious cycle.
Well, you want to have, right? You want to have your core pieces that you're building around, right? You want to have your two, three, core guys, whether they're quarterbacks, wide receivers, the CD Lamb, Jamar Chases, whatever. You want to have a few of these guys to build around. The rest of your team, if you want to gather picks, like you're saying, you're gathering assets, you're not. When you're gathering assets, you're not gathering assets to make every single pick. I think that's the biggest mistake that people make is they gather the assets and then they try and hit on every single pick. Like, no, you're using those picks to now buy certain players, buy some more core pieces, buy, the rest of your team to fill up with those core players. You don't have to make every single pick. I go into almost all of my drafts with a ton of picks. I don't have enough even bench spots to make all
Mm.
these picks. But when you're now in the draft and, somebody wants to move up in the draft or you want to move back in the draft or you want to trade, somebody wants to get in, now you can buy certain players. They can throw a couple seconds to go and buy a player. You can throw a couple thirds to go and buy a player because there's going to be somebody that just has to have, you know, from 2 years ago, that Jalen Polk, that Javon Baker, or you talk about this year, any of these guys you're getting in the third round, fourth round, some of these running backs and Jarquez Hunter and all that. Somebody just has to have that player. But when you have some picks to actually trade, you can actually buy a lot of players during the draft or before the draft. So, you're not always just trying to hit on these picks. That's very, very hard to do. Like Flo said. So, you're gaining assets so that you can move your team around. The assets you can consider just like money. You're just moving the money around, moving the assets around. But you have to do it like at the right times, right? Anytime news breaks is an opportunity for you to buy or sell a player for a cheaper price or, sell for a higher price, right? So it's just watching the market and flowing with the market. There's always going to be a time where you can strike.
And as you were talking, bro, you know what I thought of is everyone's darling this year, Jack Besh, right? Everyone's like, yo,
Mhm.
Jack Besh is him. I'm doing anything I can in the second round to make sure I secure this player. And now it's all about Dante Thornton, right? And I think even when you're maneuvering in a draft, right? Real time, like this dude, he's gonna come in, he's Jacoby Myers, 2.0, he's a possession receiver. Like there were a few kind of red flags on Jack Besh, right? Like big body, right? Not very explosive, not very dynamic, like isn't necessarily a game breaker, more of a possession receiver that you thought was gonna get targets. And now a player like I think it's Deontay Thornton, whatever his name is, Thornton for the Raiders. He's getting all the buzz and all the hype, and he's going to be on the field. It sounds like, possibly over Besh or more than Besh, right? So everything moves, value changes, and sometimes in the draft when you're live and it's whatever the draft April, and you're like Jack Besh is a ball. I'm trading a second for him. Like I need this dude on my team, and now it's like I'm kind of looking to move Besh, bro. Like I'm not feeling what I was feeling for him. So what are your thoughts on him and Thornton and like that type of situation when you fall in love early and then news breaks and it's different?
You just can't fall in love. I mean, I like certain guys, but at the same time, you just got to move with the news that's happening or, or when things happen, especially with rookies. If it's not, especially a lot of those second round, third round guys, sometimes it's hard to make those bets and you live and you kind of learn where if they're not a first round receiver, you know what? I'm okay with missing out on them. Let me go and make this move instead. Let this guy have him. Let me go out and buy somebody, right? I mean, we talked about the other week when I went out and bought Christian McCaffrey. And, I gained assets, and then you know what? I was able to strike at a right time. And I feel like my team is ready now to move forward in that one league. Another league I had, I think, a couple back end seconds, and I wound up getting Brandon Ayuk for like 2 late seconds. So, and it's just spending them at the right time, really.
Yeah, for sure. And look, man, I think that's what separates you from, at least for sure for me. And then if there's any other players out there, like me, I'm a lover boy, bro. Midnight Love, BT. I don't know if we got some young bucks on here,
And
but that's when you're falling in love. You're staying on the phone till 3 a.m. with your girl, and your mom picks up, go to sleep. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm lover boy sometimes when it comes to these players, bro. And uh, I tend to get hard eyes, man, and it's tough for me to separate how I feel about a player. But I also think that's one of the best parts about fantasy, bro. Like I feel this way, and I feel so strongly about this person, this player, this position, this offense, this coordinator, this scheme, what we've seen on tape, whatever else is kind of building, that love for that player. And sometimes you got to stand 10 down on that, bro. And sometimes you got to plant your
mhm.
flag and be like, yo, that's my dude. And I'm willing to overpay because I do believe in him. So Stevie's, never getting married, and I'm in divorce court. So I don't know what you want to do.
I mean, there's never a wrong way to do it. But when you're thinking about, especially some of these second round guys that we were taking in the second round, like Betch and all these guys, you can't expect them to just go right into your lineup. These guys should be on the taxi squad. Like your team is not ready if you are trying to rely on your best second round pick to play in your flex all season and win you a championship. Like that's not how it's done. So like that's what I'm saying. You don't always have to make these picks. You can trade them out. Like can you go buy a Terry McLaurin for a second instead of taking a chance on one of these guys? Can you go buy one of these older running backs if you need one? With one of these second round picks. So there's a million different ways that you can play. That's why Dynasty is so much fun. But like you said, there is something, to go for when you do like a player and then they do turn out good, or, and I have a lot of players that I like too. Sometimes they turn out good, sometimes they don't. But in the end of it, as far as dynasty concerned, as I try and play a different way than most people, and it's just a lot of a mind game instead of a points and this player or that player, and it's just if you think this player is going to be so good, you can have him. Just pay me what I want for him, and I'll go out and make some moves with what you give me. So
Fair. Although I want to ask you one more question because I know we got a couple other things to get to. Jaden Higgins on the Texans, slotted to be, the opposite of Nico Collins, right? Dude looks nice, fits the part, big body, like gonna see the field early and often. Like, do you? Because I have him in my flex on one of my teams that was a startup. So let's be fair there. But like, I feel like I can rely on him this year. Talk to me about Jaden Higgins.
I actually like Higgins. I like him a lot. I mean, he was like my wide receiver 4 or 5 coming in. Wound up in a good spot across from Nico. He's going to take most of the defense away, and Higgins is a good big dude. I like that he's an NFL wide receiver. He can contort his body, make sideline catches, over the shoulder catches. He can track the ball really well and contort his body to where like a lot of people can't do that. And that just shows me that he's an NFL wide receiver, which is good. So I do like Jaden Higgins. Um his most likely outcome, wide receiver 3, you would hope for. I mean, if he's a wide receiver too, that'd be awesome. But again, there's not much else there. So, does CJ Stroud take that next step up, and do what really we think he can do? Or does Nico just go nuclear? But there's plenty of targets to go around. So I really do like Jaden Higgins. I think best case scenario, he's a wide receiver 2. But even if he's a wide receiver 3 this year, I mean that's a hit for me. I mean that's looking good. But you can probably expect wide receiver 3-ish, wide receiver 4 production. If anything is better than that, then that's awesome.
Yep.
But yeah, I mess with him. I like him. I like him in that second round. I like him almost over, I like him over all those other guys, Besh and Harris and all of them.
Okay, Trey Harris to me is close, bro. I think, like, talk about like you can essentially say the exact same thing for Trey Harris, landing in a beautiful spot, walking into guaranteed target share, fitting the offense perfectly, and doing the opposite of what Lad does. Right. The problem is volume, and it's always the question when it comes to the Chargers and Justin Herbert. Like, where are we valuing Justin Herbert? We know what Harbaugh wants to do, right? Him and Roman in that DNA, bro. They want to run the ball. They want to play good D. They want to win ugly. And that limits upside for obviously Justin Herbert as well as all pieces. One of the main reasons why I'm not the biggest fan of Lad, more in redraft than I guess Dynasty. But like Trey Harris, in my opinion, fits that offense perfectly. And I think he does have an opportunity. You know, if we're gonna say anyone has a chance to live in that wide receiver 2 area, like I like Trey Harris to do it. But the only question is, unlike CJ Stroud and the Texans, you know they're gonna throw the crap out of the ball. Like the Chargers might. They got Najee, they got Omarion. Like they built this, like they finally figured out, you know, stuck all those pieces in the puzzle, bro. Puzzle complete. And let's see if this squad can actually, you know, compete and give the Chiefs a run for their money and actually win that division, which I think is very possible.
Mhm. Well, no, I mean, you make good points with the offense just in general, right? Are the targets going to be there? More importantly, like I never liked Trey Harris to begin with. So I was always out on Trey Harris to begin with. Now he did go into a good spot, a situation where he doesn't have to be like the number one guy, but he does play, he does get to play that X position. Is he going to be just a deep ball guy? Like, can he really get separation? I don't know. Those are the questions that we had coming in, and even still the questions now, especially when you got Ladd in the middle of the field now. You've got, Quentin Johnson, who looked way better last year, but he's going to look fine in that flanker role. I almost like, and call this a hot take, Quentin Johnson over Trey Harris this year.
Yeah, that's hot, bro. That's hot. That's so hot. It hurt Quentin's hands, bro. His hands are on fire. Maybe he's the
But
scar tissue is going to help him catch.
I I was one to never like Trey Harris to begin with. It's more of, can he really be that guy? I just don't know. I don't like his route running. I don't like the separation. And that's a problem for me. He's great with the ball in his hands, or if you can get him the ball, but I still have questions about the player. And then when we talk about the offense too, that just makes me a little more down on him. And it's more about the price necessarily. Like I don't mind. I think I drafted him in 2 leagues, but I got him like late second. So like it's just about the price. Like what can you get him for? I'm not. I don't have him near Higgins. Like I like Higgins a lot more, but I can see exactly what you're talking about. He does have the opportunity. There's no doubt about that, and he can definitely prove me wrong. But he's not one that I'm necessarily taking a stab on, just for at the price point. Kev said, "Hoping Stroud line holds up." Yeah, we'll see. We will see. All right, let's talk about Bo Nix real quick. I know we had briefly talked about him a couple weeks ago. The um did great his first season, right? I think he kind of did a lot better than any of us really expected. Let's pull his numbers up real quick. So 3,700, almost 3,800 passing yards, 29 tutties, only 12 in toes, another 430 on the ground, QB 7. Is that the ceiling? Does he have more than that? I know the defense is a lot better, right? I know we kind of briefly have spoke about that, but I know the defense is better. There's not really much more weapons per se, other than the running back, right? RJ Harvey. But you still got Sutton there. But what are we feeling about Bo Nix dynasty wise? I mean, some people have him top 10, some people have him outside the top 10, but a great rookie season to build on.
Look, man. So back to therapy sessions with Flojo's dynasty team. I like Bo Nix, right? And I didn't before. Like before the draft, I wasn't sold, right? There were so many question marks, gimmicky offense, right? Short completions, bubbles, all the stuff at the line of scrimmage, right? You didn't really see much, and it felt like he's just a product of that Oregon offense, short completions, high completion percentage, like get the ball in these dudes' hands and let them run, right? And when that's the case, you worry about a quarterback being able to transition to the NFL. So what we saw him do, which surprised me, and I knew he was a decent athlete, but my man's escapability, right? The way he moves in the pocket, as well as when he scrambles, this is what I love most, is my man looks to push the rock down the field, right? He'll scramble and get you 12, or he'll scramble and he'll throw the ball 40 yards down the field to Cortland Sutton, right? And he'll make a play. And they have a lot of players on that team that can stretch the field, that fit that role, which now seems to be his strength. So Bo Nix is a dude that I fell in love with last year that I had no shares of. That now in the offseason, I'm like, yo, I need to share a Bo Nix, right? So I concocted a whole, it was Tlaw. What was my? It was I was getting Knicks and I was getting JT, and I'm sending T Law and a receiver. Let me see. I'll tell you. But anyways, so that was my. It was a two for two deal, and we had to find a way to get a third party involved. And what ended up coming down the pipe was Bo Nix, JT, and Taj Brooks. Excuse me. I had to give up. Excuse me. The dude wanted Taj Brooks. I had to give up T Law. I can't believe what receiver I'm thinking about right now, but it was a good receiver. I'm drawing a blank, bro. But ultimately, I was trying to acquire Bo Nix, right, because of everything that I just said. But as I was like wanting to hit accept, and then the deal fell through, and the guy got in his feelings, and what happened to the pick I was supposed to get? And then he's countered for Mbuka, and like deal dead, bro. Like that's petty, bro. All of a sudden you're trying to get Mbuka for me, like nah. So words went back and forth, and we all left the 3 team group chat, and it was drama. Um, but ultimately, before that went through, I was like, but wait, you talk about that defense. Denver defense is going to be top 3 in the league, right? If they're shutting dudes down, how many opportunities is this offense going to actually be in to where it's going to benefit Bo Nix and his ability to produce fantasy points when they're winning, 19-7, when they're winning 23-3, right? And that is a real concern, and something that I'm glad I kind of pumped the brakes on this, because hard eyes were showing up, bro. You know me, $1 million smile. He looks a little sketchy down here below, but I was chasing him and I wanted a piece, and I did need JT to fit that roster. But yeah, I want to know what you think, and then I'm going to look to see who that receiver was. It was Marvin Harrison. So I was sending Tila and Marv for Knicks and JT. Essentially, was what it came down, and then I was going to have to add in Taj Brooks. So talk to me about
I
Bo
got
Nix, and then we can circle back and tell me what you think about that deal.
Yeah, I mean, is Bo like we always talk about? Is Bo Nix at the ceiling? I mean,
For
who's
sure,
above him right
feels
now?
like it.
He's right now QB8 on keep trade cut. Mahomes, May, Hurts, Burrow, Jackson, Allen Daniels are ahead of him, right? How much higher can he really get? Is now the time to sell Bo Nix after that first season? I mean, you've got Caleb Williams, C.J. Stroud, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Kyler Murray. I mean, I'll take any of those guys if I can get a little plus. If I'm selling Bo Nix, give me any of those guys with a plus on top of it. To give up Bo Nix. I think of it more strategy wise. As I don't know how if he's going to do much better than what he did last year. I mean, almost 30 touchdowns. Like, is he going to do more than that? Like you said, with a better defense, with a running back now that they drafted in R.J. Harvey, you got J.K. Dobbins there as well. Like, are they running the ball a ton? I just don't know. I don't like his price. I think the price is just very inflated. There's a huge tier there of other guys that you can kind of tier down to and get a piece on top that's going to give you similar production or better production. I just don't know how much higher really he can go. So I do like him, but I'm just not buying at the current price. He's more of a sell at what his price point is. His price point is right now.
And you
And
know
then
what?
as
Like
for the
as
trade, I mean, go ahead.
no, I'm saying as we're talking through it, bro. Like I felt all that, right? So I think when it comes to fantasy and it comes to trades, I need more Stevie in my life, right? Because I'm looking at the defense. Is he at his ceiling, right? All the things that make sense, but I'm like, I need a piece, right? And when we have these dynasty rosters, bro, they become your children, right? These teams are like your children, and you want like, my kid can't throw the rock, bro. Like, but that kid over there can, and he's not my child, but I want him on my team, because I like watching what that dude does. So like, I think it's always a good reminder, bro, is when you're having those thoughts and you know better and you're like, I just want him. I just want him. I just want him. Pump the brakes a little bit, DM Stevie and be like, maybe he's at his ceiling, and you're doing the exact thing that person wants you to, because now you're overpaying for a cat that can't get much higher. And to be honest, it really does feel like that with Bo Nix. So that's a great point.
And I always love to say there is no wrong way to play. There's nothing wrong with going out and buying Bo Nix. There's nothing wrong with that. There's just a whole nother world out there that you can play with and with strategy and people's minds and gathering assets and building your team and just just try it, right? Can you tear down a little bit and then see what happens and what you can do with that extra pick that you got or that extra player that you got, in that deal. There's been plenty of situations where I teared down from a player and the first round pick that I got in return with whatever player I got in return turned out to be the 101, 102, 103. Like those things happen and now you're just in a much better position than you were before just by kind of playing the game a little bit. Like, just don't think of it as just redraft and who has the best team and who has the best starting lineup. Like, there's a lot more that goes to it, when you're playing Dynasty. And if you try and do a couple different things that you're not used to, like you'll see the results, and it might not happen right away, but in week 12, when all your running backs are hurt and you've got a couple second round picks that you can play with, then you're going to be feeling a lot better.
Before we segue, though, I want you to talk to me about Tlaw, right? Because I got Tlaw on a lot of teams, at least two teams where, like, oh, perfect. Yeah, there he is, the golden boy, Goldilocks, bro. So I think that we've seen this dude. I believe he had a QB6 season, if I'm not mistaken. He's coming off an injury, not throwing shoulder, right? They added Travis Hunter. BTJ is him, right? ETN sounds like a Stevie BRB. You know what I'm saying? You like the bar
Oh, he
Stevie
is. I
BRB.
I
Yeah.
I bought him for a third this offseason, stacking thirds,
Left for
buying at the
dead.
right time.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Left for dead. Disgusting. Get this guy off my team. And now this dude might slide back in. I forget where he was going, bro, but I believe he was a top 5 or 7 RB last year for sure in Dynasty. And he fell off a cliff, right? And his numbers were trash. He looked like trash. Tank Bigsby, Michelle Tootin. There's players that could take volume, but the rumblings from the bushes is that Travis Etienne is going to get some run. I'm getting away from Trevor Lawrence, bro, but I do feel like he's in a really good prove it spot to where he is cheap as hell. And if this dude has a top 12 season, right, everyone's going to be like, I kind of saw that coming, but no one wanted to hold him because of how ugly he looked, right? So talk to me about Tila, and then talk to me also about players in this type of position, where it's like, I don't want to hold him. He's gross. They end up having a good season because we saw what was around him with a player like Travis Hunter, with the BTJ emerging, with the new OC. Like, everything looks like it could work, and it can, but it also can't. So
Right, right. And that's usually the situation with everything, right? They could work and then it
yeah,
can't. But this is where you want to buy. This is the chance that you want to take, where you're not spending up to go get a Trevor Lawrence. You're not spending up to go get a Travis Etienne. Who is the GM in your league that's got Etienne that just has to have that Corey Horton, who was a guy that I do love, but who has to have that guy in the third round that you can snag an ETN for, like, for really cheap? Who has Trevor Lawrence that just has to have Bo Nix, right? Can I get a first and maybe even a piece on top of it for a guy like that? But like you said, everything is lining up. They've got BTJ, they've got Travis Hunter, like they've got a good offense now with Trevor Lawrence coming back. Can he get back into form? We've seen him have a good season before. Like, we know that it's there. He's had a ton of just bad luck, whether it's coaching and horrible teams. A couple of different things has happened with T-Law, but he is one of those guys that he has an opportunity to ascend, to gain value from where he's at now. He's in that huge tier of players and he's at the end of that tier. Like, those are the moves that I want to make. Can I get somebody from in the same tier? Just some people value him a little bit lower that has an opportunity. Now he goes out there this year and throws 35 tutties and, 4,000, 4,500 yards, and everybody's back in love with him. And guess what? He's a top 10 quarterback because of his
yeah.
age, because of the weapons that he has around him. Fucking ETN's a beast again. Like, but he had, like, in seriousness, he has an opportunity to gain value. Those are the type of players that we're trying to buy, and just buying at the right time, selling at the right time. Like, now's the time to buy a T-Law. He's one of those quarterbacks that you want to buy down there instead of paying up for the Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and such.
So I think the moral of the story, bro, be patient. Don't chase the dude at his ceiling, right? Consider all factors before sending out an offer. And I think it's just that time of year, bro. We're all itching. It's July 1st. Training camp's about to start. All this stuff is around the corner. And, like everyone else, bro, or maybe not you because you actually use your brain, but a lot of us want to have these players, right? And we want to be right on the calls that we're making, right? Because we are trying to factor in everything. And the best part about fantasy, bro, is no one really knows, right? And anything can
Can't be
happen.
right. That's
Yeah.
the biggest. You can't be right every
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It's impossible. So play the game a little bit, right? We're playing chess, not checkers, right? I mean,
Straight up, bro. So I think, as we're talking through it, and as like that's the thing, bro, is like in my brain, it's telling me exactly that. Like, but Tila is down here and he has an opportunity. Like, this should be a player I'm buying, but this is a player that I own. So I might as well just pump the brakes and we ride this out and we see what happens. Because, like you said, if it does break right, my man is back in everyone's good graces and he is a top 10 dynasty quarterback, because he's, what, 25, 26, however old he is. Um, and maybe people are taking him ahead of Herbie right now, right? So Herbie's another quarterback where I feel like I'm trying to sell on name value. And I love Justin Herbert, bro. Like, talk about the perfect prototype, bro. Like, the dude literally, you want to build a quarterback, you're building Justin Herbert, you know? But with Harbaugh and with what he wants to do with that offense and some sort of an injury concern with Herbie that we've seen, nothing major, but my dude gets banged up. I just that's a player that I'm trying to say, like, yo, it's Justin Herbert, bro. Like, he's got to be a top 7, dynasty QB. Like, give me Tlaw in a piece, So you're like Stevie said, you're constantly playing that game of how I can acquire more value and then use that value ultimately to try to win a chip.
yeah. And the biggest thing is you don't even have to wait the whole season. It could be 1 or 2 games that T Law does well, and then you have an opportunity to sell because that's how quick people will just flip the script and want to pay up and just value him high. So
Or you hold and you're like, I was right. I was right. I
or
told you Tlaw was about to have a season.
right. Right. Or
And
you just
then
hold. If you have them, I mean, you want to hold at this point because the value is just too low. I mean, that really it can't really go down unless he totally like flops. And I don't know if he's necessarily going to do that. I think that's probably a lower percentage. But yeah, I'm buying T-Law at the current price.
you need
We
to get in one of my
got
dynasty leagues,
two
bro.
more
You could have fleeced me many times, bro.
We got 2 more guys to talk about. We got Deebo and JT. Let's talk about Deebo real quick. Going over to Washington. Might have ate a few too many Twinkies, over there earlier. But apparently he's getting back into shape. He's moving well. I've never been a huge Deebo guy. I've never really liked Deebo. He's got really only 2 good seasons. And that season where he was wide receiver 3, if I'm not mistaken, which I can't find here, I think he had like 8 rushing touchdowns. And I think CMC was hurt that year, if I'm not mistaken. Hasn't been anything near what he was that year, except for 2023. I mean, he was wide receiver 15, but I mean, not even 100 targets, not even 1,000 yards. Now going over to Washington, you got Terry McLaurin there. Is there enough to go around for Deebo to be somebody? What are you feeling about Deebo?
So I'm a little biased, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a Niner fan. Debo's love runs deep in my veins, bro. And he was the squad. You know what I mean? Like, ask a Niner fan. Some people hate on Debo. Like, to me, bro, it was like, get me the ball and watch me do work, and I'm gonna set the tone for this team, for this offense, for this defense, for everything involved, and I'm gonna make a play and I'm gonna run someone over and I'm gonna do a slime on them, bro. And like, to me, the epitome of a football player, right? Debo Samuel is that guy. And you match him with the Jaden Daniels, bro. You match him with a Terry McLaurin, right? If Washington's smart, I forget who were we talking about last year that went to Washington that were like, yo, if they use them on those end arounds, if they use them, on some of those gadget plays, right? He might pop. That didn't work. They didn't have a player like that, and they went and got a player like that, right? Washington surprised everybody. No one saw him in the NFC Championship. You know what I mean? Jaden Daniels is him. I think was scary. Eventually, he was getting a contract workout, but Terry's not a distraction, bro. He's a professional, and he's one of those players that my man's about his business, right? Deebo, on the other hand, maybe has a little bit of that, but I do think he fits this offense perfectly, bro. I think he's old enough to where you can get him for cheap. And I do believe he has the potential to have that, maybe not wide receiver 3, but that wide receiver 15 to 20 type of season, because I do feel like Washington went out and got him for the purposes of utilizing him to his strengths, right? And if you're a GM or you're a coach and you're smart and you have a brain, right? You understand what he brought to that Niners offense, and you are going to use that same style, right? Which I do believe Washington throws quite a few bubbles, right? You got Jaden, being able to stretch and get outside those tackles to where you get a misdirection and the Deebo on an end around off a potential quarterback keep, right? Like now you are a threat that you didn't have as an offense. And I think Deebo fits that beautifully. And I am biased because I'm a Niner fan and I love Deebo, but I also do think my man could pop, bro. So keep calling him big back, keep calling him Twinkie, keep calling him all these things, man. My man's gonna run your ass over, bro, and he's gonna take your chain and he's gonna make you, he's gonna make you feel him. So give me some Debo,
Listen, I
dog.
know I just talked about the other side of it, but then there is the side that you're talking about. And the good thing about Deebo is the price, like you said. So I'm in on the price you have to pay for him. He's not valued as high as he once was in the past, where I wouldn't touch him. We talk about buying at the right times. Andre says it here also. Love Debo's fit in the offense. Kingsbury's new gadget guy. Like, I agree with that. I think that he could possibly have a top 24 season if all things do go right. And I do like the price point for him. Now, would I rather have Calvin Ridley, Darnell Mooney, or Diggs that's around him in that same area? Yes, but I'd rather have Deebo than anybody else in that particular area. Like, you're getting Deebo for a cheap price, so I am willing to take the chance on Deebo. If you are a team that is in contention and you can get Deebo for a good price, I'm willing to pay that price, to get Deebo. What is that price? That's the tough part about it. Is it a second? I'd rather give up a player and a third, or something of that nature. Hopefully Debo's on like and again, it depends on the league that you're in or who has Debo. But if Debo's on a rebuilding team, obviously you can get him for a lot cheaper, or maybe a young player. But he's got to be probably in that midish to late second round range, at least, to go out and get him. He's about to be 30 though. So I think he's a lot easier to attain than he was in the past, and I'm good for it at this price point. So, I know I talk shit about him in the beginning portion of it, and all that is 100% true. But at the same time, I'm playing the game, right? Again, it's not about hating the players, it's about the price, right? So there is an opportunity here where he can outproduce what his price is, and you can get him for way cheaper. So I'm in on the buy for Debo.
But and you mentioned Calvin Ridley. I feel like Ridley's in a pretty good spot. Darnell Mooney, like I don't know if I'd rather have. I mean, I guess because he's younger. But like I feel like when we're in this tier of receivers, like age means a little bit less, right? This is your third, fourth,
Yeah,
fifth receiver on your squad. So I'm hoping you have young pieces that essentially are holding your receiving core together. And a player like Deebo versus a player like Mooney, like I'm rolling the dice and I'm taking a shot on Deebo. Calvin Ridley is probably the closest, and I probably would lean Calvin Ridley because it feels safer, right? He's the one on that squad. If Cam Ward's him, you know what I'm saying? Like Calvin Ridley, he produced last year too, but Calvin Ridley's getting up there in age. But I do think Calvin Ridley feels a little bit safer, whereas Deebo has a larger variance. Um, but any, the Moonies and everyone else you mentioned after that, I'm going Deebo for sure. And I did get Deebo. I gave up Keon Coleman. I got Deebo second and Taj Brooks where I have Chase Brown because I like to sleep at night and I like to cuff my
that's a
RBs.
that's a
And
perfect tear down. I love
yeah,
that.
and I love and I know Stevie rides dirty and he probably have Taj Brooks as his starting RB, but I like to cuff up.
No, but that's the perfect tear down. You're tearing down from a Keon Coleman to a Deebo in a second. Yeah, I'll take that all day. That's an awesome trade. I happen to just like Darnell Mooney because I just like the offense. I think they're gonna be, throw they used him a lot last year where I think he finished as a wide receiver 3, if I'm not mistaken. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think him and Deebo is a good, like, would you rather have Deebo or would you rather have Mooney? I think that's a really good thing to to talk about. Wide receiver 31 last year was Mooney. just over 100 targets, just under 1,000 yards with 5 tutties. So yeah, I mean that's interesting. All right, we got one more
And
guy to
like,
talk about here
yeah.
before we get up out of here. JT, Jonathan Taylor. Let's see where he's at on keep trade cut here. He has dropped actually. Where is he? Come on, load up. All right, JT currently RB9 behind Travion Henderson, Bucky Irving, Achane Hampton, right above Brees Hall, Quinshon Judkins, Kyron Williams, Chase Brown, Josh Jacobs. But JT last year over 1,400 yards in 14 games, 11 tutties. The guy's getting the rock. Like I don't know why people don't like him more. I know he hasn't really done much in 22 and 23, obviously getting hurt. And they were just horrible back then. But I love JT as a buy. I'm all for tearing down from guys like we talked about earlier, Saquon, Achane, tearing down to a Jonathan Taylor plus. Like I'm doing that all day.
I mean, I think the main hesitation, and look, JT was an absolute target of mine in that Bo Nix deal, right? So I'm a huge JT fan. You know, you talk about getting the rock, bro. Like they're gonna get him the rock, and I think with Dimes at the helm, which feels like is almost, 100% call right now. He's gonna be more efficient in this offense, right? He's gonna keep that offense on the field. He's gonna extend drives. He's gonna complete easy completions. Will he still make stupid mistakes? Will he still have shades of Anthony Richardson? Yes, but I do believe he's a way better, way more accurate of a passer. He's going to find those receivers. Josh Downs is another dude, that we could talk about that's deep. But another potential buy for a player like a Josh Downs who we've seen ball out. Pittman, not so much because I feel like he's always hurt, not explosive, but possession receiver in itself. But I do think with Dimes at QB, it actually helps JT. For one, he's not going to vulture any touchdowns inside the red zone. And, for two, he's going to keep that offense on the field more. He's going to extend drives, and it's going to give Jonathan Taylor more opportunities. The one knock for this dude is he doesn't catch the rock, right? He had, 18 receptions last year, bro? That's bad. Like, Steve, you can get out on a Sunday for 17, bro, and you can give me 18 receptions. Like, that is a concern. And I'm curious because – he's been nice in the passing game, bro. It's not like he hasn't done work, and it's not like he can't catch the rock. They just don't utilize him that way. And I believe if that was more of an emphasis, JT would, he wouldn't be as low as he was. You're talking about some players, ahead of him on key trade cut. Like, give me JT over Judkins. Give me JT over, some of these other dudes that are ahead of him right now. Because I want that proven asset, bro. And we know what he could be. He could be the RB1. So I do like JT. I have less concerns with Dimes at the helm, which sounds crazy, but I believe is the right statement and the right place to live. And I'm absolutely trying to acquire. And I like that tear down because I do have Saquon in one, and I've been trying to move Saquon, but people are a little bit sharper. But that might be the move, yo. Like, let me get JT in a piece. Let me get JT in a second. Let's start there and see if I can get somebody to bite because I love that move.
Yeah, it's gonna be somebody that people just don't like right now. JT people don't like right now. Brees Hall people don't like right now. It's harder when guys like maybe Chase Brown, where people really like. But going back to JT, I mean, his first 2 seasons he had 299 receiving yards and then 360, and just hasn't seen that since. Did that have to do with injury? I mean, 2022 he had 40 targets, which was only 10 less than his season before where he was RB1, but he missed 6 games. So can he stay healthy? Can he get around the 40 target mark? I mean, we'll see. But I mean, he's an easy lock for double digit touchdowns. But like you said, only problem is he going to get that extra receiving work? But he is a guy that can have 15 plus touchdowns if they're decent enough to be in that area. But that's the biggest problem is, are they going to be good enough on offense to get down to the goal line to even hand it off to Jonathan Taylor? But I think he's a lock for double digit touchdowns. He does he go over 1,500, 1,600 yards? Like, we'll have to see what happens there. But like you said, I mean, Danny Dimes, I do like that better for him as far as like Anthony Richardson trying to steal, some thunder there with those rushing touchdowns. But JT is a guy that I'm going to buy just because of the price. He can finish as a top 12 guy, but he's being valued like right outside of that. And people just don't like that. So I'm willing to buy on him for those reasons, just because I think he's just undervalued a little bit. I like some of the guys around him too, but they're just a little bit harder to attain. So JT's a guy that you can attain. He's going to get the rock. We know that. So yeah, give me some JT.
With it.
Let's see. Let me see if I can see some. I should have did was with some of the other guys we talked about too, but let's see some recent Jonathan Taylor trades. See if there's anything out here. 2026 first, Torrey Horton and Isaac Tesla for JT. JT for David Montgomery, Tucker Kraft, and a third.
Whew, stealing. I mean, unless you
I don't
believe it. I mean, I guess Kraft's solid, but
I don't
maybe
mind
his tight end
I
can
don't
be up
mind.
there.
I like that trade. The one with Horton Tesla and a 2026 first, it's not bad. You're only paying one first for him. But can I go cheaper than that and get like that's the only other thing, right? When we talk about Jonathan Taylor, can we go cheaper and get the Derrick Henrys or the Alvin Kamara's or Joe Mixon, some of these older guys that, you can take a chance on. And then during the season, if JT's healthy, like then you could go out and buy him. That's my one fear about buying running backs earlier if they're not, the Bijan Robinsons, Jameer Gibbs. I like to buy running backs during the if I'm going to buy, a stud or something like that. It really just depends. Let's see what else we got here. JT for DK and Tony Pollard. I kind of like the DK Pollard on that one. I'm okay either way, depending on the situation. What do you think about that?
I mean, look, like DK was one of those players you could have bought for dirt cheap before A Rod showed up, too, right? So it's always about timing. It's always about, what you think could potentially happen versus what's the reality now. I do like DK still, and I think Tony Pollard, like, it's another ugly RB, bro. It's another guy you're not excited about at 8:30 in the morning, and you can't wait to watch him, jump on the TV at 10. You're just like, oh shit, there goes Tony Pollard. He got, 100 total and a touch, and you're like, okay, I'll take that. I'll take my 16, and but like I guess for me, bro, like it just depends, right? It's always dependent on your roster. It's always needs. If you have the depth to move, a player like a DK and a Tony Pollard, I would have liked to have maybe held DK and maybe sent somebody else, maybe threw in Pollard in a two, something along those lines to where you can hold, that receiver or a player that has upside like DK for at least this year, with A Raj being has to be an upgrade as much as a lot of people don't think A Raj is anything. He's better than Mason Rudolph, that's for sure.
That's true. And then there is a trade Saquon for JT in the first. 2026 first and Jonathan Taylor for Saquon. I like the tear
Like
down.
if
I'll
I can
take it.
get that, I'm running that, bro. That's
Right.
essentially what you just said, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
going to be the first thing I do after this is I'm putting Saquon back on the block, and I'm going to send an offer for JT in the first to whoever has JT and see what happens.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I like JT. I think he's a little undervalued right now. So that's one of the guys I'd be willing to buy, if possible. So, all right, I think we got through everybody who we wanted to talk about tonight. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Andre out there, been waiting for the JT segment. He's your RB1. Have zero clue what to do with him. You can't. It's hard to sell him right now because like people don't really like him at the moment. But if there's someone willing to buy, like yeah, I'm always willing to sell any player. Just depends on what price you get
Moral of
him.
the story: Stevie ain't getting married, bro. That's what it is.
No, I mean, I like to build my team around the studs. I have a ton of, CD Lamb, Jamar Chase, Puka, Malik Neighbors. Like I'm building my teams around those guys. Everybody else, I could sell them all and just, have a bunch of picks going into the draft and then just start building, start selling, start filling in some of the older players, make a couple picks. Like there's just a bunch of things you can do. But I am building my team around wide receivers, and I buy the running backs when I am ready to really compete. You know, I don't care
So
if
that
Tony
team,
Pollard's my
yeah,
RB1.
Exactly. That team that I got Igbuka on, right? I ended up trading Jacobs and who did I trade? Jacobs and I already forgot, but I got back Marvin Pickens, right? I gave up whatever I gave up to get Ibuka. So now my team normally, right? I like a good RB3 on my dynasty squads, and that's how I roll. And right now I don't have that. And this feels like a, get on Stevie's pod and let him influence your decisions and build a team that he likes. And and I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Ugh, I'm a little uncomfortable, bro. I want JT as my third RB. Who do I move? Do I got to move Marv?" And it's like, Marv is a player. Like, maybe we can end with this. And what do you feel about Marvin Harrison? And will he ever live up to essentially where he was drafted and what people are expecting of him? One. And two, like, where do you value him? And is he a player you're willing to move? Obviously, depending on value, but are you looking to either buy or sell Marv based off of your feelings for him, in regards to what can he ascend to, or is kind of like he's here and we just don't see it?
I mean, I think it really just depends on what the damn Cardinals are going to do. Like they could have done a way better job of scheming things for him and getting him the football. And then there's Kyler Murray. Like the thing with Marv is he's a very like technical sound wide receiver. Like he is more of a, I want to say, not great like after the catch, right? He's more of a Larry Fitzgerald, almost like technician like type of wide receiver. So everything's got to be like timing, right? Kyler Murray's just not that type of quarterback. But like you put Marv with I mean, we could talk about some of the greats, obviously, but like a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, where there's like these timing kind of concept of like even in like a Brock Purdy almost offense where like it's just very reliant on the timing, the route running, like that's I feel like is a type of player he really is. And I didn't think there was enough slants. Like there's no easy like gimmicks really that he was running, like getting them on slants and things of that nature. So hopefully they get him into a better position this year. He is a player that I do like to buy right now just because of what happened last year, what people think of him, that perceived value. So you can get him for a lot cheaper than normal. But where is he really going to live? Is he going to live in the wide receiver one range, or is he going to be more of a wide receiver two? That's going to be the real question, and that's the hard part of it. And I don't know. So if I have Marv, which I do in I think two leagues, what I've been trying to do is try and tier up if I possibly can. Marv and what can I get? CD, Jamar, or Puka, St. Brown, any of these guys. I'm trying to move up and get off of them. Speaking of just going back to the running back thing, speaking of running backs, I have a squad that I built. I think this is like the third year, and a ton of just tier downs and then tier ups, trading picks and things of this nature. It's a 10 team, it's a 12 team start 10. I've got don't have to start a tight end in this, so three wide receivers, three flexes, two quarterbacks, two running backs. All right. Dak and Golf as my QBs. Jamar Chase, CD Lamb, Puka, Amon Ra, JSN, Rashid Rice.
Come on, bro.
My RBs are Chase Brown and Travion Henderson. Okay. And I'm thinking that it might be time for me to try and buy one of these stud running backs, right? It might be time for me to pay up. I've got more than enough wide receivers. I've got some ammunition on my bench. I mean, I do have Jordan Mason as well. So my running backs are like, okay, I don't necessarily have to go out and buy one, but I do have Darnell Mooney and Hunter Henry on the bench, which I feel like I can throw into one of those flex spots if I get rid of one of my top wide receivers. So who am I going after? Like, it's got to be the Bijan Gibbs or Genty. Like, I feel like I don't really want to pay up and lose any of these wide receivers for anybody else.
I made a post and said, Gibbs is my adopted child, and I would give up that whole roster for Jameer Gibbs, right? Like I love fantasy football, bro, because I love watching football, and I love watching football because of players like Jameer Gibbs, right? And just the way this cat moves and the way he operates on the field, bro, is such a tier above. And I've had people compare Trevion Henderson to Jameer Gibbs. And every time I hear that, I want to grab him and I want to slap the shit out of him, right? To me, there are very few players that are in Jameer Gibbs' tier as the way that he moves on the football field. It is just different. And if you watch football and you know football, right, you probably understand what I'm saying. So I am always pro Jameer Gibbs in any trade, in anything I want. Bijan could be the RB1 this year overall, and that's a real talk, right? But if it comes to me personally, I want a player that I love watching, that I get excited to wake up to, that when he's on my roster, bro, my arms around him and we're going out to pregame, and I'm like, yo, I'm going to get you 20 touches today, Gibbs, right? You're going to get you on, however we can utilize you, like, you're my guy, bro, and this is our game plan. Let's go do work. Like I'm sick, bro. My brain doesn't function properly, and I feel like sometimes I'm in the NFL because I got these guys on my team that I love watching. But long-winded answer, bro, is Jameer Gibbs, and I would give up JSN, and I would give up Mooney, and I'd give up Hunter, and I'd give up a second, and I'd do whatever I got to do. But if you could pull that off, because it's only going to be an overpay that's going to pull somebody away from Jameer
No,
Gibbs, right? So like
I know.
my Mr. Asset Analyzer, right? Mr. Never Overpay and always buy low. I'm gonna enjoy watching you kind of squirm in this space where you have to overpay to get a guy like that.
That thing is I just don't need to is the other part of it. So like I want to go out and buy one of these studs, but I'm like, I really don't need to right now. Like my running back room is okay. Maybe I just hold on to my assets, make sure everybody's healthy during the season. I want to make sure I got ammunition, right? We talked about that earlier. So Maddox says, "Do I give up Cook and try to get a wide receiver like Marv or Rice or someone?"
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about selling Cook. I think it was a couple weeks ago. We talked about coming off of James Cook. I mean, the wide receiver that I love right now, really to buy, and Rashid Rice has picked up a ton of steam, and people have been buying. His value has increased a ton lately throughout the offseason here. But if you want an elite wide receiver that people are not really valuing as an elite wide receiver right now, it's AJ Brown. I
Mm.
mean, people have a lot of these younger wide receivers over AJ Brown. Give me AJ Brown. I know they don't throw the ball much over there, but he still has 1,400, 1,500 yards. He was on pace for over 1,400 yards last year. So as long as he's healthy, like, yeah, I would try and go after a guy like AJ Brown. Can I get an AJ Brown? Do I got to add something to James Cook, add a little something? Give me an AJ Brown. Like, that's the type of guy that I'm looking for. I'm not really looking for any of the wide receiver twos from that, like, I don't even know, wide receiver, 15 to 35. There's just a ton of the same kind of players, wide receiver twos there. I want one of those elite players. So who's the one I can get for cheapest? From what I've seen so far and been trying to acquire is AJ Brown.
I wish I could share your same sentiment there. I'm a notorious AJ Brown hater. And you know, I- look, man, he's a baller. The dude, he's like Deebo's big brother, right? But better. And I feel like, after the catch, being the one on that team, being on a offense that's going to score 28 to 30 points a game, it's just a matter of Saquon seems to be the focal point until he's not, right? And I don't love buying AJ Brown, but I get what you're saying because he is a player that maybe I have AJ Brown on my team, and maybe I hate AJ Brown, and maybe I'm looking to sell AJ Brown, and I'm gonna say, yo, give me Cook and a first, or give me Cook in a second, or Cook in a player. Um, I think it's interesting he put Marv down here, right? Because I feel like Marv is a player you could potentially get a Cook in a second, a Cook in a third, a Cook in a
That's
player,
a good one
and you can
too.
get a player like Marv to where now you're hoping that the Cardinals are smart enough as two guys in their office or their studio, right? Like, get this man the rock, give him some easy completions, keep him in the game, get him some confidence, and utilize a player you spent top what? He went the top 10, top 12, top 15. Utilize him. How dumb can you be to be like, we only use Marv on, a rollout completely across the field touchdown? Like, man, that's terrible. And some people should get fired for not being able to see the obvious. But I do like a player like Marv in this situation where I feel like some people are like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Marv. Maybe now is the time to sell. Maybe he's a wide receiver too his whole life. Kyler is another guy that I used to love Kyler, and now I can't stand Kyler, right? How do you feel about Kyler? How do you feel about this offense? But then it's like, why do I buy a Marv if I'm concerned about this offense and Marv as a player, right? So there's a lot of stuff that gets factored in this situation. But ultimately, James Cook is a sell depending, no matter who you're trying to get. because he's having contract issues. He's not a number one, number two, number three. There is no number one option in Buffalo. He's coming off an 18 touchdown season, right? Which will not happen again. They got Ray Davis, they got Josh Allen. Like, all those dudes are going to be utilized around the end zone. Cook's a decent player, but in my opinion, he is the epitome sell because of the production that he had last year and the amount of that production that was based off a touchdown.
I agree. If you can get Marv or Rice, I'm taking either of those two. If those are really guys that you can actually get, then yeah, I would take either of those two easily to get and give up Cook. Going back to AJ Brown real quick, who still finished as wide receiver 20, even missing 5 games, over 1,000 yards, 7 tutties. I mean, I don't know, man.
Look, it never makes sense, and it worked last year because my man didn't play in 5 games, right?
Right,
I
right.
just like players around his ADP. Obviously, we're talking more redraft here. He's
Mhm.
still young enough to carry value in Dynasty. Obviously, he's a receiver too, so he's not going to fall off the cliff. He is a good player, but for whatever reason, he just hasn't been somebody that I'm willing to pay for and or go out and target.
Feel that sometimes there are just certain players that you will just never touch, no matter what happens. And he's just one of those players for you. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Ain't
But
nothing
like
wrong
you
with
look at his
that.
game logs and you look at where he's finished the last, almost basically every season of his career. And it's like my man produces. He's nice.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's just in Philly, and I know they don't throw the ball much. I know they've got Saquon, but he was still eating. Like,
I mean,
yeah.
he had a couple big games. I think that kind of buoyed his fantasy value. He had a couple two, maybe three touchdown games, I believe.
Last
Um,
year, let's see. No, actually, only had single digit tutty games.
Touchdowns
He
with
didn't have
all of
any
them.
games
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
with two tutties. Now we had a few games, obviously, over a hundy. I mean, he was decently consistent. He had only maybe 2 duds, really, 2 36-yard games, and that's going to happen sometimes when you do have a Saquon there. But he still put up double-digit fantasy points. I think only 2 weeks he put up single-digit fantasy points. Yeah,
And you talk about that defense too, bro. But like I feel like the Eagles are such a good team that even if they hold the team to, 12, 14, 17 points, they're gonna put up 30. And that I think that's
yeah.
what kind of keeps them in a tier by
It's just
themselves.
it's just the price. He's at the end of that wide receiver one. He's in Dynasty and on Keep Trade Cut. He's wide receiver 15. Like, it seems
Who's
low, but then you talk about some of the other guys above him, but, Travis Hunter, Garrett Wilson, JSN, Marv, Ladd, right? I like AJ. I like him.
I mean, apples to apples right now today, like I'm taking AJ over Ladd, I'm taking AJ over Marv, I'm taking AJ over, I think his real value, like Travis Hunter for sure, bro. Like I just, speaking of Travis Hunter, bro, I don't know how to feel about this man because I know he's a different kind of athlete, right? I know he's a player that can impact the game on both sides of the ball. His ball skills are ridiculous, right? But like,
Mhm,
how much are they really going to use him? Is he going to be a starting receiver? And because they're valuing him as such in keep trade cut, if my man's that
mhm.
high. So what does that look like if you're the Jags and you mortgage the future and you did everything you can to go up and get him? You better be
Mhm.
getting this man the rock, right? So Travis Hunter's a
That's the
player that I don't
thing.
have any shares of, and I haven't looked to actively acquire because I don't know exactly what to expect. And if you're paying premium, you better have a damn good idea what you're getting back.
He is 100% a huge risk. I think I have him in like 4 leagues. And I was able to get him decently late in most of them, 105, 106 area. I took him at 103 in one league. I took him at 102, I think, in a IDP league, so a little bit different
Mm.
there because he's playing DB as well, where you can play him in the DB slot. But he's a guy that his ceiling is Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, CeeDee Lamb. Like, that's his legit ceiling. But again, we talk about best case, worst case. Is he going to be in the middle? Is he going to be a solid wide receiver two? Is he going to be a T Higgins type where he's on that fringe wide receiver one? Does he get used still at on defense as well? So it's it's really tough to gauge Travis Hunter and what exactly is going to happen there. He's for sure a risk, but the ceiling is huge. And is he just going to wind up somewhere in the middle, especially when he's got a great wide receiver and Brian Thomas Jr. across from him? So
I mean, even the T comparison as a floor, bro, feels like a little bit of a stretch. You know what I mean? Like,
mhm.
what if he's wide receiver 25?
Oh no,
You
yeah,
know?
that's I wouldn't say that's his floor. I was just saying maybe is that middle gap that where he ends up, right? The floor would be even lower than that. I guess you can say like wide receiver 3-ish
Yeah.
kind of range. But does he wind up in the middle of that? I feel like T Higgins is the middle. You've got that Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase up top, and then you've got that lower tier that maybe he plays more defense and he's in the fucking Jordan Addison, Jameson Williams range.
Like it feels if he didn't play corner, and he was just a receiver, like JMO feels like a really like pretty legit comp as far as what we could potentially see on the field in regards to you know like attributes from a receiver. Like who can we paint and make the closest comp to? Like JMO is that explosive, dynamic, doesn't get the rock enough, can make plays, looking to take a step forward based off of what we've seen. Like JMO, I like that comp in regards to player style and what it's going to look like on the field when it comes to Travis Hunter because they feel like they're similar types of athletes, at least from the offensive standpoint on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Travis Hunter could do a lot more than JMO, but do they use him in that aspect of just trying to get the ball into his hands, right? Some of those short passes, those end arounds, get the ball in his hands, or are they really deploying him like as a wide receiver? You know, but I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens during the season.
Yes,
But
sir.
anything else you want to talk about before we get up out of here? Appreciate everybody in the chat that came out. Any other questions? Throw them out there before we get up out of here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the stream of consciousness after the few players we were trying to talk about, but nothing's coming to the top. Oh, I did want to ask you actually. So you mentioned Trevion Henderson is on your team. If somebody were to comp Trevion Henderson and Jameer Gibbs, are you shaking their hand or are you slapping the shit out of them?
Well, I think it's just one of those things where it's okay, where you're expecting the best outcome. I I hate where we just say this player is going to be like that player. Just because fucking Sean Payton is the coach, every fucking running back is Alvin Kamara, every
Yeah.
wide receiver is Michael Thomas. Like, we just need to stop doing that, right? I mean, didn't Sean Payton say like last year that Jaleel McLaughlin or freaking what was the other guy that never got no
Bidet.
play? Huh?
Was it
Uh,
Bidet? That fool came in and did work
no,
and like broke his back.
no, not him.
Estimate?
Blake Watson, right? Didn't he say
Ah.
that he was like reminded him of Alvin Kamara? Like, I'm
Mhm.
just sick of Sean Payton saying all this shit. And it's not that I don't like RJ Harvey or anything like that, but we're putting this expectation that he's going to be Alvin Kamara just because Sean Payton had Alvin Kamara. Who's the wide receiver there now? The rookie they got. Can't even think of his
Uh,
name. I got no shards. Pat, what is it? Brian or
oh,
whatever it is.
Bryant. Yeah. Mhm. He's Michael
Oh,
Thomas.
he's
Yeah.
Michael Thomas now. Are you kidding me? I mean,
Yeah.
no.
Hey.
Is it possible that they turn out great to be great players? Yes, but we got to stop just thinking. And we talked about it, I think, 2 weeks ago, also, where we just always think, a young player has a great season, and automatically it's they're going to be better, the next season. It's not always the case, right?
Answer the question, Stevie.
What was the question? I forgot.
If somebody you have Trevion Henderson on your team for one, how do you feel about him? And if someone were to come up to you and say Trevion Henderson is the next Jameer Gibbs, do you shake their hand or do you slap the shit out of him?
They said that they think he's the next Jahmyr Gibbs. I would say I'm looking to sell actually. So
Hell yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. That's perfect.
what are you willing to pay? What do you got? Matter of fact, let me take a look at your squad real quick. I'll
Yeah,
send you over a trade offer. That would
yeah.
be that's my response there. But again, it's one of those situations where not every player is damn Jahmyr Gibbs, CMC. Does he have a skill set like that where he can rush the football and catch the football? Yes. But I think Travion is actually just a amazing like blocker, you know, um, pass blocker.
That sounds that sounds terrible for fantasy, but
And I
yeah.
know that sounds terrible, but it's also
It's
good
not.
because he's going
Yeah.
to be on the field. They're not going to be able to take him off the field. That's the biggest part about Travion Henderson is aside from his pass catching ability, his rushing ability, like he can pass block, and that's going to keep him on the field, and that's going to give him opportunities. So I do really like Henderson. I've got him, I think, in 2 or 3 leagues. I'm happy about it. The only problem is obviously where you got to take him in drafts. You got to take him like 103, 4, 5. Like very rarely will he fall after that. But yeah, I mean, I like Henderson. Am I going to say he's the next Jahmyr Gibbs? No, I mean that's probably a stretch, but it's a possibility.
What about like play style? Like, you know what I mean? When do you analyze? Is it? I know it's mostly about value for you, but like for me, when I watch players play the game, right? How they move, what they look like on the field, things that they can do that look a little bit different than the average running back, such as a Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Like you're like, damn man, that guy moves different. Bijan, that guy moves different. You know, like the way
Oh
he
yeah.
looks on an NFL
hmm
field, it sets them here, right? So when I have people say Travion Henderson is the next Jahmyr Gibbs, I'm just like, I don't see it, bro. Like to me, I'm
No,
missing a
not
piece.
that.
I'm missing something, you know?
Not that type. I would say maybe more you could say, I guess, like Alva Kamara-ish. But we saw it from like week 1, like Jahmyr Gibbs, like all of a sudden, like for I think it was maybe his
That
first or
fake spin
second
move,
carry.
yeah, that shit was
And
tough,
you
bro.
just and you could see like, oh shit, like this guy's gonna be good. You saw with Bijan, I think it was that juke move down like inside the 20 or 30,
Yeah.
where he had that crazy juke, and you're like, all right, this guy is a little bit different. Like this guy can move, he's gonna be good. So
Mhm.
I'm excited to see some of the running backs this year. Once we really get into it, and see how they're moving. But yeah, I mean, we talked about Jaden Higgins like a little bit earlier. I've seen just in the film the way that he can move. Like that's an NFL wide receiver.
Right.
So yeah, there are a ton of instances where you can just see it. But then there's also that dynasty aspect of it where don't let that kind of cloud your judgment or mind on what you can possibly do or accomplish with trading some of these players.
Yeah.
You don't need to always have them, on your squad, even though, you like them. But, we want to win. We want to win ships. And, most of the time, the teams that are winning the ships are not the teams that are just sitting back and playing the whole season with their squad they had from week 1.
Facts, homie. All right. Well, I think your answer was better than slap the shit out of him, so I'm good with
All right, we're about to get
it.
up out of here. We'll answer this last one here. What's your opinion on stacking? Got McBride. So would it be bad to also have Marv? I mean, if you have a tight end like and a wide receiver, I mean, there's not much you can do about it there, but you've got to like those are where the targets are. So I mean, I'm not opposed to having that. I actually have a league where I do have McBride and Marv. I mean, it is what it is. I'm looking to move Marv, but can you find the right suitor for the right price? But I'm never going out and seeking a stack like a QB wide receiver stack. I'm never really going out and seeking it. If it happens, it happens. If the opportunity is there, I think I have one league where I do have Chase and Burrow. That's awesome, but it's hard I'm not just going out of my way to do it.
I get a little OCD when it comes to this. I don't like having, even in this situation where look like literally like where are the targets? Where else are the targets going to go? But you have a bad game from Kyler and the Cardinals
Mhm,
put up 10 points. Like you're struggling, right? So I think it's
mhm.
it's always about diversifying your options and but if you're in this spot and you're playing Dynasty, bro, like there's only so much you can do, especially when you got a three receiver must start plus three flex. Like there's gonna be some overlap, and there's unfortunately just some things you can't control. Um, but if I had a choice, right, this would not be my number one choice. But like I said, like speaking of McBride, is that a player you're looking to sell right now? Him and a Bowers in let's just call it a point 0.5 tight end premium. You know, the one and the two in regards to dynasty tight ends. Like you talk about ceiling, you talk about max value, or do you think that positional advantage with these two players is worth the hold? Or are you selling?
It is worth the hold for those two particular players because you can just see like Trey McBride is the offense. And I talked about selling Sam Laporta, after that rookie season, and everybody went, crazy about that. But look what happened now. He's kind of valued down a little bit. Now you can buy him for a lot cheaper. But like McBride is going to be up there, Bowers is going to be up there. I don't think those guys are going anywhere. I'm all for tearing down in certain situations, but I don't feel the necessity really to unless your team really just sucks and you need to, pick up multiple assets by trading them. But no, I'm not trading Trey McBride if I have him unless I need to. Same thing with Bowers.
Hmm. I mean,
It's just too good. Too good of a
yeah,
too good of an advantage. I mean, McBride only had fucking 2 touchdowns last year. Like, are you kidding me? Like, imagine if he has 5, 6, like, or more. I mean,
dude's a stud. What do you have, like 109 catches or some shit? Like, what did he have?
111 catches for
11.
147 targets, 1,150 yards, basically 1,146. I mean, that is the advantage that you want that you don't really want to give up. Um, what was Laporta's season? So Laporta, his season wasn't even 1,000 yards, wasn't even 100 catches. Like there's a
10
big
touchdowns.
difference,
What did he have?
He did have 10 touchdowns, which was a ton, which was crazy. But 889 yards. I do like Sam Laporta as a buy this year. I think the value is down. He still had 7 tutties last year. He came along in the second half of the season. And then there were rumblings that he was playing like injured last season. Whatever the case is, I mean, he's still a good tight end to get like right underneath. If you can't get some of the top guys. But yeah, I'm holding McBride. I have a ton of shares of McBride. But yeah.
Stud for sure. He's a stud. But since you're master value, I was wondering if you're like, yo, I'll tear down and I'll get a first and a player and um, roll out with Laporta. Maybe that's the move right there.
Mm-hmm. Jamie, what up, Jamie? We're about to get up out of here, but who's your favorite rookie tight ends beside Loveland and Warren? Shit, I like Ferguson. And
Eh,
Ferguson and who the fuck is the other
Arroyo,
one I like? Um,
homeboy on Seattle.
Arroyo,
What's up for
I like him, but I like the other dude better.
on Cleveland? Fanny?
On the
Is that
Chargers,
Fanny?
Gadsden. I like
Oh, guess
Gadsden as
yeah.
as that deep guy. But yeah, Ferguson and
Gaston's catching
Gadsden are
some
probably
steam.
are my favorite tight ends from this class.
I like both those calls. I'm curious. What are your thoughts on Tyler Warren, bro? Because I had an opportunity to take him in that startup. I don't know, bro. I don't. Loveland got draft capital. Like it seems like he's gonna be a nice wild card if Caleb's him. But like I worry about a player like Warren. Like, what does his target share look like, and do you think he can produce in the NFL?
I mean, yeah, I think he could definitely produce in the NFL. I don't know what the target share is going to look like, depending on who the quarterback is. But he's got an opportunity. There's not much else there. Apparently, he's getting a ton of looks. Through practice here. So I just don't love betting on these tight ends. Like he's just a seller, just at the price point he's at. I mean, tight end 4 right now. I mean, could he be better than all these guys? Underneath him? Yeah, sure. But is that the chance that you're really willing to take? Not everybody's going to have this Sam Laporta, Brock Bauer season, and everybody is chasing that. And
Mm,
I'm not chasing it. I like Tyler Warren. I like Colson Loveland. I love them as athletes, but are they really going to be top producing tight ends? Definitely, probably not year one, but it's possible. I just don't love odds or taking chances on tight ends at that value and spending that. Like I'm not spending a first round pick on a Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, unless it's like a 1.75 or 2.0 tight end premium. That makes sense. 1.5 is just not enough for me. They're second round guys for me, but I could be wrong. I just don't like making bets that I don't like.
No, I mean I'm with you. I love T Ferg at the way cheaper price. Gaston's getting some love, um, but I just think like before McBride and before Brock Bowers and Laporta, I don't even know if he checks the box. He didn't have 1,000 yards. Rookie tight ends never hit, bro. Like in the history of the NFL, like it just never happened. And I feel like we're gonna shift a little bit back to what consisted of these tight ends not breaking out for 20 years, bro. However long you want to look back, like, what Ditka had 1,000 yards. What did Kyle Pitts have 1,000 yards? By the way, he
Yep.
did. Shout out Kyle Pitts for breaking the trend. But like that shit don't happen, bro. And now it's like, of course it's gonna happen. And at some point, like we got to analyze what history is, right? That's why we talk about running backs at a certain age. That's why we talk about all these things that consistently happen over time. And these two players, a Brock Bowers and McBride, didn't blow up until what, late second year or third year. His rookie season, we're like, yo, McBride's a bust, right? So be careful, especially when you're targeting these tight ends. I think Stevie said it best. Unless you're in a 0.75 or 1.75 or 2 point PPR for these tight ends, like don't overvalue them and don't expect them to do what Brock Bowers did, right? That doesn't
Mhm.
happen. So just pump the brakes and be cautious.
I mean, if you're gonna value these guys so high, like, sure, you know what? Let me go buy Sam Laporta. What can I add to Warren or Loveland to get Sam Laporta? Or, what can I get in return if I wanted like a George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson? Like, give me those guys over Warren and Loveland if I'm getting the piece on top. Not necessarily because they're not gonna do better. They could, but I just want the assets and I'm gonna get similar production, you know?
Mm,
I don't think Tyler Warren or Colson Loveland is giving you a Trey McBride, Brock Bowers type season.
not even.
Kenneth Walker, I got him and Hubbard. Not sure what to do with both. I don't know. I mean, I like Kenneth Walker, but I don't. I like the price of him right now, but he's just never given us an RB1 season. He hasn't played. He's always hurt. I like him, but meh.
Kenneth Walker, that's one player that I have officially divorced from all my leagues, and that is a player that I bought in quite a few leagues because I just, we talk about, what the product you're seeing on the field, bro, and he still is top five in, broken tackles. He still is top five in all these
He gets
metrics
the
that are
rock.
important for running backs, points per game. Like Kenneth Walker, technically, I think is a buy, but at
Mhm.
some point you got to be like, yo, we haven't seen it, bro. And what you've shown us for the past 3 or 4 years is kind of feels like who you are. So why would I want to invest in that for the hopes of what we thought you were, but yeah, you haven't shown us that your entire career, right?
Mhm.
There has to come some point where show me once I know you can do it versus damn that potential is always there and maybe you could, but it's like he hasn't, bro. He hasn't shown us that. So he probably is a good buy, but I'm out. I think I'm out too.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on the price point because he is now at least underneath all of these other guys, where for a long time he was just valued way too high. But yeah, I think the tough part is getting rid of him. You can't really get rid of him until the season starts and he plays well. When that comes, then you can strike at that point, and go for the sell. Hubbard, I like. I like for his price point. I like for the production. I'm fine with that.
Word.
Sharp doesn't fit the scheme well, so I like getting Martinez as the backup. Yeah, I mean, any RB on the roster, I'm rostering. I don't care.
Seattle for sure. I mean, my man gets
Or
hurt.
on any roster in general, I'm trying to just load up on running backs on the bench there. But all right,
Stevie
let's get up out of here.
RB3, Damian Martinez.
Yeah, give me. I think he's might be actually one of my most rostered players is Damian
I got a
Martinez.
grip of shares of him too, by the way. So I like him, bro. He fell super late, but like he was pretty solid.
Hey, does he get one start? Does he just have enough value to sell him for a third? You know, that's all we're looking for. We're just looking for that one opportunity where I can just plug him in. You know.
Word.
Right. Let's get up out of here. We'll see y'all next week. Appreciate everybody for coming out. Peace.
Peace.